lot of news to get to, but we want to stay on the topic of elections. Another live look at Capitol Hill now. The news coming down today, a federal judge has blocked a Trump administration initiative to use a revamped immigration database in order to check voters' citizenship statuses. We have this from the Associated Press with that breaking news saying a federal judge blocked the use of that federal database to check citizenship, saying that it could wrongfully purge voters. That judge ruling that the SAVE database violates federal privacy laws. This ruling comes following arguments from rights groups that the system relied on inaccurate data and risked disenfranchising eligible citizens. Now, for more on this, we want to bring in VoteBeat editorial director Jessica Huseman. Thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now, Jessica.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you back on, and this is a really important topic. First, I want to ask you more generally, what is the SAVE database? What kind of information does it rely on to check these voter citizenship statuses?
Absolutely. I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding about what the SAVE database is. Most people assume that it is one big list of everybody in the country and whether or not they're citizens. If you think hard about that, it would be impossible for the government to have such a list. What this is a list of everyone in the country here legally that is not a citizen. So that means they have registered in some capacity as being here as a non-citizen with the federal government, and they are approved to be here. It also contains people who may be here illegally and have in some way come in contact with the federal government, and they have also been placed on this list. So this is very far from a comprehensive list of every citizen in the United States. There is no list of every citizen in the United States. And so what this list is a very incomplete data set of the non-citizens that the federal government knows to be within our borders.
And the judge in this ruling said that this violated privacy laws, federal privacy laws. Which laws is this judge saying that the database violates, and what information is violating this privacy law?
The ruling references a small handful of privacy laws and rulings over the years, but it predominantly centers on the Privacy Act of 1974. And that act requires that if the federal government is going to store your information in a database, you have to be told what that information will be used for and how it will be used. And in addition to this database, the SAVE database, which continues to exist and has existed for a long time, what the Trump administration wanted to do was take all of the voter list in the country. As your viewers probably know, he spent a lot of time during this first couple of years of his presidency asking for states for those lists and collecting them. And his intention was to allow election offices across the country to query en masse their voter rolls against the list of citizens. So they are both compiling a national voter roll and then also using that to en masse check to make sure that none of those people are registered non-citizens. And so that was really the new modified SAVE system, is the use of both of those things in tandem to do bulk searching. And the problem is that, the federal government never explained what exactly it was going to do with this data in the exact way that they are supposed to, right? There is a notice period. You have to go out for public comment. These are not bureaucratic steps. These are steps that were written into law in 1974 and have been the law of the land since that time. And so the way that this went down really, and the judge was very clear about this, facially violated that law. And, I asked the Trump administration when when executive orders came out about these voter rolls and SAVE information, I asked them how this information would not violate the Privacy Act of 1974, and they refused flat out to answer that question. So this has been a concern that they have been confronted with for quite a long time, and they've never had a satisfying answer, and it doesn't seem like they gave the court one either.
And Jessica, even before this ruling came down, the SAVE database has already been in use. So, which states have already been using this database to purge some people off of their voter lists? And have we seen any examples of people who are actually eligible to vote being taken off the voter roll because of this database?
Yes, we have. The case most specifically references Texas, which is actually the state that I am broadcasting to you from. And Texas really embraced the SAVE database full throatedly, and we're running people against it a lot. And so what they would do is they would reach out to the people whose names matched and say, you have 30 days to prove your citizenship. And if they didn't in those 30 days, they were removed from the roll. And what we know about the SAVE database is a couple of things. It contains a lot of false positives. You would be surprised at how many people's names match other people's names. It's not hard to do, but also, and most crucially, this is not an up-to-date list. This is not automatically generated. It does not automatically update when someone's citizenship status changes. So, for example, the SAVE database has thousands of people who have become naturalized citizens in the meantime. And so we know, for example, that Travis County, Texas got about 75 matches. And of those, only a small handful they found were not naturalized citizens. And so we're talking about a really small percentage of people that these matches are actually finding. The vast majority of them are either already have been citizens for the duration, or they've become citizens and are lawfully registered to vote, but the database itself is outdated. And so those are the voters that we are seeing being swept up in this.
Well, let's talk about what comes next, especially with this next election season coming up. Does this ruling mean that the state election officials have to stop using the database immediately? And what happens next for the voters on these voter rolls?
Yeah, the ruling made clear that this modified version of SAVE, where they can do these bulk searches with the voter rolls, that has to stop now. But the election officials have had access to SAVE in some capacity for quite a long time. And this does not eliminate the SAVE database entirely. It just means that election officials have to go back to the way that they were using it before, which means that they can query individuals one at a time. They cannot en masse search their entire list for matches. And so that is still available to states. There are other ways to check citizenship as well. The Electronic Registration and Information Consortium, which is ERIC, is a voter roll matching program that has citizenship data in it as well. Those matches are generally better. They rely on additional information. And so it would be false and an exaggeration to say that states no longer have any ability to check citizenship data. They no longer have access to this tool, which this judge very clearly found to be quite flawed.
Right. Thank you so much, Jessica, for your insight here on Live Now from Fox. We always appreciate it.